The main thing is already you're practicing already, which is the disidentification from it, so that there is awareness and it. You haven't become it. You are the awareness and there's it. It is allowed to be in the field or the space of awareness. No longer that problematic, because it is not who you are. And so negativity, of course, is contagious, highly contagious. The immunity gradually, as you become more present, the immunity is there, because intense presence is no longer susceptible to that illness, the negativity. And so when you feel a negative energy field, you said a room that you go into. There are also other energy fields in this. Even when there's a full moon, for some reason, it seems to influence some people's behavior. Lunatic, that comes from the word luna, the moon.
So can you protect your energy when you are sensitive and you walk into a place where there's negative vibes and people processing challenges? And if we look at this from a duality mindset, and the duality mindset, what that is we're aware of the three-dimensional reality, which is the traumas, the life lessons, the evolution process that we're struggling with in our lives, the challenges and the deep emotional and mindset, mental work that we're doing in our lives. That is the soul's work in this 3D world. That's why we descend into our body from our higher soul, and we do this work in our lives. And so when we walk into a room and somebody has a negative mental vibration, or they're processing or they're releasing their issues and their traumas and their emotional detonators, if we've already worked through those processes in our own lives. For example, when you walk into a room and someone's experiencing a really strong issue with frustration at the way other people are acting, and their mind drops into criticizing and not being content with the actions of others. It's very common for us to do this when we're growing and we work so hard to be good people ourselves. Then we see people with more unconscious mindset and they're very selfish, and we judge them because we're working so hard to be better people ourselves, and we're giving so much, and we look at other people and we drop into that frequency and we connect with their energy. Now what happens? Is it really their energy that we're picking up on? Is it really that other person who's influencing our energy field? Or is it the fact that we still have not processed, we haven't released, and we haven't done the work yet on that issue? When you walk into a room and someone's experiencing, for example, let's say that you're really abundant in your life and you have no problem with abundance, it just flows and you have money. Well, let's say you walk into a room and someone is really struggling with abundance, they're really worried about their financial situation and they don't know how to resolve it. Well, that energy of their stress and their frustration and worry is not going to affect you. You will feel their situation and maybe even step in and say, oh, hey, I can help you with this mindset. You just need to do this and this and this. But if they're dealing or struggling or releasing energies that have to do with your own personal challenges and the things that you haven't worked through yet, that is when the energy is going to affect you. So I was watching a video by Eckhart Tolle, and he's talking about, creating this, you don't need to create this protection or this barrier to protect your energy from other people. And I he gave advice to this very sensitive lady who was talking about how, she walks into a room and she just feels all the energy. And he said, at some point, you no longer need to process and go through this experience with certain energies. And it's very interesting. She said she had a mentor who told her that she had come to do this work, and that it was sort of like her karma. And I beg to differ with that. It's not our karma. It's not a past life experience. Karma and past lives, and I think these words, they need to be left in the old spiritual energy of the past, of our ancestors and our mentors that have come before. Because if we are connected in a three-dimensional universal mind, there is no past and there is no future. The past and the future, when it comes to these emotional situations where we're learning and growing and releasing and working on our evolution, is a very interesting concept, because in this 3D world, in our physical, human, day-to-day life world, we do have time. We have time, and it's a watch and it's a clock, and we're watching the time, and we have a past in our day and we have a future in our day. But when we connect in the duality mindset with the information on the other side, and the universal intelligence, there is no time in the world on the other side. So it's exactly the same thing that happens when we walk into a room and it's full of bad vibes. Those energies are only going to be able to affect us if we inside have work that we still need to do. So at some point, Eckhart Tolle says, you get to a place where those energies, the heavy, dense energies of other people don't affect you. He says they just pass right through you. They don't affect you anymore because you have no emotional detonators left to work on in those areas. And unless you've had an amazing spiritual awakening, like Eckhart Tolle or some of those great masters, you're probably going to work through your emotional detonators your whole life. But as you start to love and accept and work through the challenges and not look at them as bad vibes or negative energies, things that we should try to block or separate ourselves from, but we start looking at them as, okay, bring it on. This is a new gift. Today I get to work on this so that tomorrow, at least tomorrow in our 3D world, I don't have that affect me anymore. So in the beginning, when you have these negative vibes and these mental thoughts that bother you, you have these challenges, and in the beginning, we have so much work to do that sometimes it can be a little bit like, this is bad and this is good. But at some point, you have to start this work. It's going to happen whether you want to or not. Your soul is going to force you to work on your issues. What are your biggest fears? Are you afraid of being alone? Are you afraid of getting up and speaking in front of people, making YouTube videos? Are you afraid of learning to drive a car? Or whatever it is, it's not, like in Course of Miracles says, it's not what you think is what's bothering you. It's not learning to drive a car that makes you afraid. It's the fact that you have a fear about driving in cars because in the past something created that situation for you. Maybe a loved one had an accident, or you had an accident as a child, or something happened in your life that you need to work through. So as you go through this process and you start to accept that these energies are there as your greatest teachers, as your best friends, and each challenge you come, it's like, wow, I got the lottery again today, because today I get another opportunity to work through this mindset and that mindset, and another opportunity to grow and receive a new challenge. And as you grow more and more, you get sometimes even more challenges. And I think, people think like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all this spiritual work and things are getting harder and harder and harder. What's going on? We are actually being privileged to being invited to reach a higher, greater level of consciousness in a fast track spiritual journey, so that you are able to experience the kind of enlightenment that Eckhart Tolle has, or Michael Singer or other beautiful mentors. We all have the opportunity to get to that place, but many of us are not going to have that awakening just like boom, like Eckhart Tolle had from one day to another. We're going to have to actually work at this. We're going to have to put in the hard work. We're going to have to put in the emotional work to release all of those emotional detonators, all of those traumas, heal the inner world of the inner child. We have to go through all these processes so that when we walk into a room and we're very sensitive and there are negative energies, we don't perceive, it doesn't affect us, it doesn't frustrate us anymore, the unconscious actions of other people. And the other day I was talking with my staff about someone who had created a difficult situation here at the hotel, and this person said to me, well, that is really, you can see that really, was a bad person. And I immediately thought, I'm like, well, I don't have time to explain it right now, but I immediately thought in my mind, there are no bad people. There are no evil people, there are no bad people. And that's why we don't have to be putting up barriers, and we don't have to be, our mind that keeps us safe is always looking, after we've been traumatized by people's bad attitudes and actions and mean things that happen in our lives, our mind sometimes goes into overdrive to protect us, but we don't need to protect ourselves from other people's actions, because it's not a bad action, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if someone, does something that's not very nice and it hurts you, you lose something, it's an opportunity. They have an opportunity to release, to heal, because bad people are really just people that have had some very extreme, in certain cases, where people do awful things and they become like, child molesters and horrible things, or murderers. People who have come here to express and release certain things that are extremely bad, but look at it from a point of view of the 3D world badness. If you look at it from a universal perspective and you start to understand more and more, there's no difference between coming here to work through jealousy and coming here to work through some kind of sexual addiction problem, where you have these experiences and more extreme things happen. And I know it's not something our mind in the 3D world can accept. When we say like, oh, you have to protect yourself because someone might die. And then, a great spiritual master might say, well, what is wrong with death? And it was like, oh yeah, but we're supposed to stay alive. There's certain things that are hard for us to still, capture. But if we start understanding how someone can come here to work through jealousy, when we walk into the room and we feel like when you walk into a situation and a man is very jealous, it can be a very strong, or a woman too, can be a very strong, serious, negative energy. And it affects everyone around. It affects the people that, if they were maybe judged as like, oh, something was going on between those two people and someone gets really jealous and really nothing was happening. It can be really uncomfortable for all the people involved, for the loved one who's being judged, for the person who feels the jealousy, because it's a horrible feeling to feel like, you're losing someone, or the person you love is doing something that is not, in your ethics for your relationship, your agreement that you have with that person. And that energy can be so strong, but as you work through your own energy, your own traumas, it's really not about what that other person is doing, but it's a reflection of what you have lived through in your life. So when you do find that something's affecting you, don't block and look towards the outside world to change. You need to go inside your own world and say, okay, this is bothering me, this is really interesting. Wow, this person's situation came to be a mirror for me to look at my own situation inside. Okay, so if that jealous energy of that person affected me, where in my life have I had situations where, someone's been jealous of me, or I've been jealous of someone else, or maybe an unconscious situation in a relationship that I've been living in the past affected and left me with a few, hurt feelings about maybe someone not being faithful to me. So when that came up and someone judged me and thought I wasn't being faithful, or true in the relationship, it really detonated a hurt feelings. Like, how, I've always been faithful. How could that person ever look at me in that way? And yet it comes up not because that person is sending that energy to you. It comes up because you had hurt feelings in the past. And it comes up so that you can release, like we're here to work through and to release all the things that get trapped inside of us. And if we work on it, if we face the most difficult ones, if we go through this process, little by little, when we walk into a room, we'll feel peace, even in a situation where other people are struggling with their emotional energy. When Eckhart Tolle sits and he does a session and he answers a question and someone stands up with a problem and they ask him that question, he just connects with his universal wisdom and he speaks to the person with kindness and love, and he's not being affected by their energy or their problems because he doesn't have any of those pent up feelings, hurt, accumulation of traumas. And because when he had his awakening, his being released all of those things. And we're here to do that process, but we're here to do it step by step, one step at a time. He came here to show us, what the result would be and how we would feel and how we would live if we had had that awakening. But we need to make that awakening process ourselves, step by step, challenge by challenge. So every bad day, every bad vibe that comes at you, every challenging, sensitive situation you're facing is one more step towards that beautiful awakening moment, that beautiful spiritual awakening that your soul came here to experience. And some people have it like that by a near-death experience or a really traumatic experience, or like in Eckhart Tolle's situation, sitting in a park bench and just like, it just all blew off and he was awakened. And we have this opportunity to have that experience like he did. But that opportunity that comes to us is coming to us every day, every moment that we're challenged. Every day that we feel someone's negative vibe, and every day that we feel sensitive, and what's happening is our own feelings, it's our own sensitivities. Michael Singer calls them samskaras. He studied the yoga. Michael Singer says, the samskaras are where the energy gets trapped in your body because you didn't let that experience just pass through. Eckhart Tolle says it just passes through him. He's aware of the energy of the other people, but they're negative vibes, so-called negative vibes, because if you look at it as a negative vibe, you're looking at it as a bad thing. But if that other person is experiencing their awakening, then why would that ever be a bad thing? They do something unconscious, they do something to hurt us. They're having an opportunity also for their soul to have an experience. And we're having our corresponding awakening experience. So we need to get out of looking at our world and our 3D world and our relationships and our sensitivity as this bad, negative, emotional, we want to keep this world, everything to be beautiful and good, and there's this good and there's this evil idea that we've been taught by our ancestors. We've been taught about good and evil by religion. And it's a way to control humans, to keep them on an honest path. Otherwise, a couple hundred years ago, it was harder to keep people in line, So you got to have some books and some things, some ways of interpreting, the scriptures and ways of interpreting the teachings of Jesus, and it's already beautiful. But now that we're on an awakening path, it's time to stop looking at it as good and evil, as good and bad. In the 3D world, it might seem good and bad. In the spiritual world, every opportunity that comes to us, no matter how challenging, no matter how difficult, even if it is something really extreme, like the death of a loved one, or an illness, or some really devastating things happen to human beings. And when we allow them to happen, when we accept them, they're a lot less heavy and traumatic, and they're a lot less painful. That's what awakens the pain body. That's what the pain body is. The pain body is the accumulation of all those samskaras that we have, all our traumas that we came here to live, and then we came here to process and to release. And right now, in this moment, that we have this gigantic moon, and we have these huge changes, and the political scene. We have huge changes all over the world between, for example, there's a small, you can see it in, the red and blue situation that's happening with the politics in the US. And we're seeing a sort of parallel situation in Israel and Gaza. And we're seeing this in many other places in the world, even in our personal relationships on a more personal level in the world. And right now, I feel like what's happening is we're all having an opportunity to release a huge amount of those samskaras, a huge amount of that emotional trauma and that energy. So hang on to your hats and glasses. Remember when I was a child in Disneyland and we went on those rides that's like an extreme roller coaster, and they say, hang on to your hats and glasses. Oh, hang on to your hats and glasses and ride it out. And every challenge and every experience you have is a new opportunity for you to release more and awaken more. Release and awaken. Release, process, and awaken. And it's not a pleasant feeling in our emotional pain body. It's not a nice feeling when we go through this process of releasing, when we see chaos, when we see war, when we see people fighting because of their belief systems. This is causing right now, because of this huge energetic lift off in the world, this is causing a huge amount of anxiety for people. And it's because we're seeing it from a 3D point of view. If you see the situation around that's happening from a 3D point of view, like Eckhart Tolle says, it's insanity. It's locura or lunatico, the moon, right? Because right now, the moon is la luna, and we're all a bunch of lunatics. And it's not really mental illness in a lot of cases, because a lot of psychologists and people, there's going to be they're saying they're predicting this huge mental illness crisis. Well, is it mental illness that people are facing? Do we need to take pills for anxiety and depression, or do we need to just start understanding that all this energy and all of these awakening opportunities that are happening are here for our highest benefit? And we have the opportunity to have an awakening like Eckhart Tolle had. Each day of our lives, each moment we face a new challenge. So when you start feeling a little bit crazy and insane, and you're struggling with the energy you're feeling, just release it. Understand it's just emotional energy, it's just feelings, it's just part of this releasing that's happening on the planet right now. And all of those heavy astral planes that we're all facing and dealing with are being released, maybe kind of on a mass evolution process. And it's a very difficult moment, but it's also a really beautiful moment for the planet. The children that are being born right now are being born with a way more connected heart center, with way more universal intelligence. They're gonna know how to use artificial intelligence. And now the amazing thing is, these children that are here are also going to be able to use their huge heart center connection to the universal intelligence. And us older people, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old people, have the opportunity to also have that heart center awakening and also have a spiritual awakening, an energy awakening. We can also release all of these things from our ancestors, from our whole pattern of family challenges. Because if you look back through all the women or all the men in your family line, you will often see how the same challenges were repeated energetically. So it's not karma. It's not like this is my fault. I did something bad to have this challenge and this experience. It's, no, this is my gift. And if I can be strong enough to overcome this, then the benefit of the evolution process and the awakening will be passed all the way back through generations. And even the loved ones on the other side who guide us and come with us will receive the benefit of energetically having that released from the soul group, from the family ancestral pattern too. And that's a beautiful reason to wake up and say, if I know, and my father and I have experienced this too. It's very interesting because I've been struggling through some really strong challenges in the past years. And I talked with Dad one day and he said to me, honey, I'm just sitting here in my chair and I'm just feeling all this energy just being released from my body. And I was telling him what I was working through, and he was sitting there feeling it. And from what I understand from studying these things, it's not just your living relatives who receive the benefit from your work and your evolution. It's your whole family ancestral line. So sometimes it's hard to do the work just for oneself. But if you love your family and you love humans and you love this process, make the effort to do it for yourself and also everyone else. It's a beautiful process. There should be no, walking into being so sensitive to everyone else. It's not everyone else's energy that you're feeling. You're sensitive because inside yourself, there's still work to be done. So, sometimes it's necessary to remove yourself from the situation, think about the energy you were feeling from those other people, and then get to work on yourself. And little by little, even though you remain a sensitive person, you're not going to create boundaries and barriers. You're going to be able to walk into a room, perceive those energies, and be at total peace with the situation. And then you'll be able to help others.